Three.
All right. Welcome everybody back to the Gentlemen of Crypto. My name is Marlon Maley, and here I have Reggie Middleton with me for our new segment on the show. Just to give you a quick background, again, my name is Marlon Maley, based out of Atlanta, Georgia right now. Uh, Former mechanical engineer turned data analyst turned crypto nerd now. Just looking to get my feet wet in the industry. Reggie, people know you, but you want to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yes, I would. Actually, I really don't, but I'm going to put forth it anyway. So my name is Reggie Middleton, self-directed investor, tech geek, technophile, and crypto geek. I'm very, very strong in fundamental analysis. So over the years in my public life since 2007, we predicted the collapse of Bear Stearns, a big 36-page report. Bear Stearns crashed about 3 months later, predicted the collapse of Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers collapsed about 6 months, the second largest REIT in the country. They collapsed as well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. About 84 calls over roughly 7 years. Google, Apple, the European sovereign debt crisis. We're about to do another sovereign debt crisis analysis. It's in the works. It should be out in a couple of weeks. And that one's going to make the European one look like kindergarten. So strong on global macroeconomics, very, very strong on fundamental analysis and investment valuation, and very strong on crypto, particularly crypto strategy and valuation. Been doing this since 2013 on the crypto side. So in 2013, I invented advanced DeFi, decentralized finance, which is a subset of a larger invention that I had, which is peer-to-peer capital markets, basically allowing individuals to act as their own bank, broker, wallet, and exchange. You've heard that mantra before, I'm sure, but we believe we had invented it at a high level, and we filed patents. The patents were filed initially in April, another set in May, and several sets after that. They were granted in the United States last year and in Japan at the end of the year before that. And these patents are what we call the Aboriginal DeFi patents. Before there were any, there was one. And the members of our Telegram group, Veritation Telegram group, some of the members have done some analysis, and they estimate that the patents give us control over roughly 70% of the crypto industry. I personally haven't looked at it from that perspective, so I'm just telling you what others have said, but it's to give you a perspective. To narrow down on that perspective, in our opinion, we're very analytical, so our opinion is research, but I'm going to couch it as our opinion. Ethereum infringes, Ripple's on-demand liquidity and RippleNet itself infringes, Solana infringes, the Bitcoin Lightning Network, Axie Infinity, Uniswap, Compound, quite a few, and if Uniswap infringes, and so does SushiSwap, PancakeSwap, et cetera. We're looking in the Binance chain. It looks like that infringes. Chances are, if Ethereum infringes, then the Ethereum killers that are basically clones of Ethereum also infringe. Takes some time to do the analysis, but each analysis comes up to about 70 to 140 pages. Very, very exact, claim by claim. This is a very big deal, but you don't hear of it because a lot of the big news outlets, and I'm going to say it because I'm going to be not brash, not bold, I'm going to be honest. The big news outlets that everybody follows are extremely compromised because of conflicts of interest. Let's take CoinDesk, which is owned by DCG. DCG has over 200 investments in the private and public side, from Coinbase to Kraken to et cetera. Roughly, if the Telegram members' calculations are right, roughly 70% of the holdings are affected by that patent. So 70% of the holdings are affected by the patent, and DCG owns CoinDesk. Well, then you see there might be a sub-objectivity issue. But let's look at it this way. It goes further because the reporters and editors of CoinDesk are compensated in SAR, stock appreciation rights, which are derivatives of DCG's equity. So basically, when DCG investments do better, the reporters and editors of CoinDesk get richer. When DCG's equity doesn't do as well and goes down, they get poorer. So now you have a direct conflict of interest. I'm not going to pick on CoinDesk. I tagged Michael Casey in quite a few tweets, and never nothing against him personally. And actually, I feel a little sorry for him. Not trying to pity him, but I do understand his position because he's conflicted. But you're not going to get the news. So what we're going to go over today is something you're never going to hear from CoinDesk. They may be forced to report on it after the fact, but they're never going to do it before the fact because anything that damages that DCG equity is probably not going to come out of CoinDesk. Now, these conflicts exist other places as well. So I'm naming CoinDesk because I know the mechanics and the players, but, be careful. So whenever you do research in primary sources. You go straight to the facts. You get a legal opinion or a legal case. You don't see what CoinDesk says about it, or you don't see what the New York Times says. Most of these papers are available publicly and for free. Go straight to the courthouse website, pull it out, read it, Pacer, etc. Okay, on you, my brother.
All good. Well, I just want to say
you're
that
muted. Come off from mute, or I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can't hear you. So, you know why I can't hear you? Because I turned my volume down.
Oh,
that's why. My fault.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. That was my fault. Turn the volume down. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, I'm actually going to tweet this out to my YouTube followers so they can follow. Okay. I mean, my Twitter followers.
All right, and for everybody watching, if Reggie just gave a great history, a quick brief history on his patents so far, and I would encourage anybody to go to his YouTube channel as well to take a look at some of his videos over time. His videos for over the last 11 years, from him on MSNBC, his own shows, interviewing other people. So it's definitely an honor to be here with you, Reggie, and to get some of this information out some more.
Thank you.
So before we dive in, what made you decide to go ahead and have a segment and show with the Gentlemen of Crypto? I know you have your own following and everything, but if you can explain a little bit about that.
Give me 1 second. I know this is not the Martin Scorsese style production you're used to, but I'm going to add something to our audience. Okay.
I'm a B movie type of guy anyway.
Hey, B movies are some of the best movies, or at least not B movies, but the independents.
You're correct. There you go.
Okay, so I'm going to talk and think at the same time. Rare. It's rare in crypto, isn't it? Right? Okay. So basically, Zay and King asked me if I want to do a segment on the show, and I do appreciate what they do. I think they're the longest running crypto show in the industry. I know they've been around since about 2017 because they did a piece on my ICO, which was April 2017. They're still doing it. They do daily content. They put it out regularly. And I'm a supporter of what they do because, they spit the truth, or at least their version of the truth. I don't necessarily always agree with them, but, it's not about me agreeing with it. This is not about agreement. This is about information, analysis, and knowledge, right?
Correct. And I think that's the best thing that people can get from this channel is whether we agree on the same thing or not, the information is there, and it's up to us to, dive into more and do our own research to determine whether if that information is applicable to our daily lives or projects or whatnot.
That's right. I believe in treating everybody like big boys and girls, unlike you maybe, some of the sell-side analysts, we think so you don't have to. That's not the way it's supposed to be, right?
Right. You got to be able to provide for ourselves out here.
Yes.
So let me ask you, speaking about your patents and everything, you said that you have a public warning for DAOs. What may that warning be today?
Well, the warning is don't believe the hype. So obviously, I'm a big crypto enthusiast, a crypto fan, but I'm a realist. I make my money by investing in building things. And if I fail in my investments, or if I fail in building things, I simply don't eat. It's just that simple. So it's not a matter of whether I'm successful at it or not. You can tell how successful I am by how skinny I am. So, at some point, you're like, Reggie's not doing very well. And I'm never gonna let myself get fat, but if I get a little biceps, you see how the curve and
it's the mixed martial arts. I seen them kicks you throw in the gym.
So you see the stripes curve a little bit. That means I'm doing a little better. And being that I don't sell services, I basically, eat my own dog food. I don't have a reason to mislead, to aggrandize, or to hide facts, like those with a conflict of interest may. And again, I'm not trying to be an asshole about it and, malign somebody, but there are conflicts of interest and ulterior motives throughout the industry. And I'm not saying, find who doesn't have a conflict or ulterior motive. There's some everywhere. I'm saying think for yourself. Okay. So DAOs, a distributed autonomous organization, were created by basically techno guys, computer programmers, coders, engineers, etc. And it was supposed to be the nirvana of organization, to take the place of traditional companies and corporations and partnerships. Sounds good. And there's a lot that it brings to the table in terms of organizing a group, especially a disparate group, geographically disparate, ideologically disparate, etc. Cool. But in terms of taking place of a legal entity, in order to create something that can successfully take the place of a legal entity, you need to be very, very, very well versed in the law. Okay. Most developers and coders and engineers aren't. I'm not a lawyer. Okay. But one of my superpowers is, I'm sorry, the grammar. I am well aware of my limitations. So since I am not a lawyer, I study up on law, and I study up on law not so I can espouse upon the law, but so I can pick quality lawyers. And then these quality lawyers, I then take counsel from. Okay. These quality lawyers tell me, along with my independent research, that DAOs are a legal structure. They're basically a general partnership. They lack a legal wrapper that limits liability, which is basically the entire premise of having a legal structure to limit liability. That would be a limited liability company, a corporation like an Inc. or a corp, a limited liability partnership, etc. There's no limiting the liability with most DAOs. It's just an organization. Usually doesn't have a physical address, and it doesn't have a physical location. Very difficult to serve using traditional means. So they feel themselves untouchable because they do things differently. Most judges are not going to look at it that way. Most judges actually are used to having power and authority, which they do. That's why they're used to it. And many judges are not fools. So if you think you're going to avoid the consequences of breaking a law because you don't have a physical address sitting on Main Street, or you don't look like a typical entity, well, the judge will give you an entity. Okay, it will call you an entity. That entity will most likely be a general partnership. Why? Because it's a gathering of people to run a business or organization for a reason, which is a general partnership. You have general partners and limited partners. Again, not legal advice, not financial advice. I hate hearing this disclaimer, but I'm going to go through it anyway. Okay, this is Reggie's opinion. Okay.
Have to do it.
Reggie researches his opinions very, very thoroughly, though. Right? That's how Reggie hits all these home runs. That's how Reggie got these patents, etc. You were about to say something?
Oh, no, I was just saying have to do it with giving a disclaimer.
Okay. So with that being said, if a DAO is considered a general partnership, well, then the members of a general partnership are all, each and every one of them, jointly and severally liable for the liabilities or liable for the actual partnership itself. So let's give an example that's been on my Twitter feed a lot. And if you want to hear constant discourse on this, join my Twitter feed at Reggie Middleton. And there's a lot of smart people discussing this. There are a couple of people who are, maybe a little personal or a little less polished, but there are a lot of smart, polished people. And we went through this in depth. So look at Compound DAO. Compound is a DeFi project. It does lending. That also infringes on our patent. We haven't taken action on Compound, but there are three. I'm going to pause and digress for slightly. There are three patent holders who have patents of significance in the crypto industry. Now, there are many, okay? And they're fairly big patent holders. Bank of America has a lot. MasterCard has some, the Winklevoss twins through their Gemini IP or holdings, I forget the name of it, et cetera, et cetera. Coinbase has a couple. One or two of those may be interesting, but the biggest patent in the space, in my opinion, is our Aboriginal patent, DeFi patent. It covers roughly 70% of DeFi. As a guest, that's what someone else did, but it does cover a lot. I've met very few or found very few entities that we did a deep dive on that didn't infringe. There's also the man that the crypto industry loves to hate. That's Dr. Craig Wright. He's the one who purports to be Satoshi Nakamoto. Whether you believe he's Satoshi or not is irrelevant. And I feel that conversation is highly irrelevant because it doesn't really matter. If he is Satoshi, he is. If he's not, then somebody else is. And that's the extent of it, okay? If you get your feelings into it, you can have a discussion about it, love him, hate him, but that's not productive. What is productive is to realize that he filed roughly 800-something patent applications, many of them international, surrounding the mechanics of Bitcoin. He's been granted 53, possibly more, because he might have used different holding companies that I'm not aware of, but I found 2 of them. Okay, 53 patents is a lot. Now, a lot of them are very, very specific slivers, so I wouldn't be very concerned about it. But he does have one. He patented tokenization, basically. No, that's a pretty big one. Okay, I haven't went through it in detail, but it does have more meat than most of the others. And then there's a third one, total return systems, where they patented the use of a data source between on-chain and off-chain distributed ledgers, basically going from layer 1 to layer 2, or basically patenting the use of an off-chain or centralized oracle. In the beginning, and I'm oversimplifying, okay, because I haven't went through the patent thoroughly myself, but I did breeze over it. What's interesting is in the beginning of DeFi, everybody's decentralized, 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 but you know something? The world doesn't work like that. So as more people and more entities started getting into it, they had to scale, and performance mattered and usability mattered. The purveyors of this technology realized that it's not going to work properly in scale unless you centralize some of the data sources. The owner of Total Return Systems saw this ahead of time. He's well-versed in institutional finance, apparently, and he patented it. And now the industry is moving into it. He's actually quite aggressive in claiming his patent rights, and he's sent cease and desist or letters of notice to Compound, DAO, MakerDAO, et cetera. And interestingly enough, he has served them. He's went past that point, and he's actually sent legal papers to start litigation. Now, what makes this interesting? Because some DAOs have a strong institutional investment presence. Let's use Compound DAO. Have you invested in Compound, by the way, Marlon?
I have not.
Okay, so I could go through a couple of big investors. Coinbase Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz's A16Z, one of the biggest venture capital firms in the country and one of the most renowned. Union Square Ventures, Bain Capital, from the Bain Consulting Group. Okay, these are big, big boys.
Now,
okay?
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yes.
With these big investors in the DAOs, are they more so investing for the technology to put behind the DAO, or are they looking to be a part of the organization themselves and have in certain say-so about what's going on? Or could it be both? What are they looking to get back from their investment?
Okay, I am not going to go so far as to think I can ascertain what their frame of mind was, but I can tell you what they did. They bought governance tokens from the DAO, which gives them voting rights and gives them control, and potentially gives them investment gains. I don't know if that was their goal. But you know what else they bought?
What is that?
Unlimited liability.
Because they can't be brought. Oh, go ahead.
Say it again. Remember, each member of a general partnership is jointly and severally liable for that partnership's liabilities. So you run Marlon Mailey's big time hedge fund, MMBTF, okay? Which you don't have a lot of big time money. So instead of investing $50 million, you invested $1, but you
Something
still
like
invested. Okay. So you put that dollar into the fund, right? And you go through all your friends and family, and they all decide, well, we're going to put much more money in. So we're going to put $100,000 each. Okay. You go through 10 people. So now you have $1,001. You put that money, you decide you want to swing for the fences. You put all that money into compound DAOs, compound DAO, $1,001. All the other investors put much more money. And I think they raised about 35, 40 million, between 25 and $40 million from VCs. Okay. Now, compound infringes on TRS's patent, according to TRS, quite possibly infringes on nChain's patent, which is the holding company for Dr. Wright. Quite possibly, I'm not sure. And they, in my opinion, or at least my analyst's opinion, definitively infringe upon the Aboriginal DeFi patent. That's 2, maybe 3 patents they infringe upon. Okay, very difficult to get out of the TRS patent, I think. Almost impossible to get out of our patent infringement. So Compound makes, let's assume we make $127 million a quarter. Let's assume that, okay? In revenue, that would be times 400, another 4, a little over 500, $500 million a year. Okay, they a pooled liquidity DeFi project such as Compound or Uniswap has very, very little expenses relative to a traditional software company. Okay, and a traditional software company has very, very high margins because they have relatively few expenses as compared to a traditional manufacturing or industrial company. Okay, so to give you an example, the closest thing to a DeFi company using pooled capital would be a software as a service company such as Salesforce. But Salesforce has expenses because they have to go and rent server farms and servers and a Salesforce, et cetera. Compound doesn't have to rent server farms because they outsource all that out to the blockchain and the nodes, which they don't have to pay for. They don't do much in terms of sales and marketing that I know of. So basically, they have software development, coding, and some legal fees and salaries. Okay. Very, very small, which means their profit is large. If their profit is large, any royalty would hit them hard because royalties are usually a percentage of revenue, but the key is they aim at the owner of the IP is sharing roughly a quarter of the profits of the entity. But of course, a quarter of profits end up to be a much, much smaller number once it comes out of the revenues, 1%, 2%, 3%, et cetera. But in terms of Compound, that number is going to be a lot larger because they're making almost pure profit. And that has to be shared with, the guys who own the IP that they're using. I don't want to say stolen because it's a possibility they might not have known it. They could have known it. It doesn't matter. It's owned by them. Now, once they've given a notice or once they know about the existence of this patent and they still keep operating, now we have an issue because normally you owe the patent holder what they call compensatory damages, where you compensate them for using IP. Basically, you're paying somebody to use their stuff, okay? But if you willfully use it without permission, that's stealing. That is theft. Now, the law has, as I understand it, because I'm a layperson and not a lawyer, the law has structures in place to prevent you or disincentivize you from stealing it. That's called treble damages, up to 3 times damages. So if they normally would have owed you 250 million, well, now they owe you 750 million. And that 3 times kicker is to convince you not to steal. Now, the open source community says patents are bad, patents are no good, they stifle innovation, blah, 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 blah. That's nonsense. The strongest patent law system and the strongest patent office in the world, where would you think that is? What country?
Probably China or Japan, or the US, one of the 3.
The strongest one and the biggest one is the US, okay? The second most prolific was Japan, but China is really getting up there now. China has filed more patent applications in crypto than the US and Japan combined for the past year, okay?
But yeah, they're trying
but
to
no matter which
ban
we look at
mining.
Yeah, it's either US, Japan, China, or US, China, Japan. It's irrelevant because the point's the same. Take a look at the economies, right? Who has the largest economy? The largest three economies in the world? US, China, Japan, right? Who has the largest technology markets in the world? US, China, Japan. So these strong patent offices and strong patent laws tightly correlate with the largest economies and tightly correlate with the largest technology markets. Where's the internet, where most of the internet companies in the world? The US. Where most of the crypto companies in the world, despite the fact regulators assault them regularly, like myself, in the US. Software companies, the US. Biotech companies, the US. Look at Japanese electronics, Japanese cars, etc. Chinese electronics. Very, very strong evidence. Now, we're going to look at a collection of countries, 17 or 44 countries. The EPO, the European Patent Office, which covers the UK, all the EU, and the Eurozone. A lot of countries wrapped together. And together, their economies barely eke out one tiny island nation called Japan. Japan versus 17 nations of 44, and they're neck and neck. Okay,
that's crazy.
In terms of technology markets, right? How many internet companies can you think of out of Europe or the UK off the top of your head? Leading internet companies.
I would say none off the top of my head. I would have to look that up.
How about leading crypto companies?
Can't even think of none.
Leading cell phone companies.
Can't even think of none.
You want to know why? Because they're very stringent with their patents. Very stringent. See that correlation? Everybody who has a prolific patent office, big economy, big technology markets, big tech companies, entrepreneurs come to the US to get started and funded. Do they go to Paris? No,
they come here.
Right? They don't go to the UK. London's the second largest financial center in the world, or the first, depending on which market you're talking about. They don't go to London. So anybody who says patents, impede progress, they're not looking at history. They're not looking at current events. They're not looking at anything. They're appeasing their desire to use somebody else's idea for free. Okay? Intellectual property patents are, by law in the US, personal property, like this house that I'm in. And I'm a lovely, friendly dude. You come in my house uninvited, you're unwelcome. I'm not going to hurt you or kill you up front, but I will ask you to leave or pay rent. I'm not going to open source my house because it's my house. I'm not going to open source my girlfriend. It's my girlfriend. Not that she's my property. I'm making,
right. Analogies.
Anonymous, right? Yeah. So I don't have one. So
I know that you have your patent in the US and Japan. Did you try to get it approved in China or go about that way, or how did that go?
Yeah, I'm all over the world. Well, not over. I'm all over the largest markets. So I didn't do Africa as of yet, and I didn't do South Korea, but I've done the other major markets.
Okay. And then when you and to your point of letting somebody in their house unwelcome, either going to pay rent. So what are you looking for these DAOs or other companies in technology that are infringing on your patent? What are you looking for?
Before we go for what right now, I'm observing, but I'm giving a lot of people notice, a lot of companies. I do things in the new age fashion, the new crypto world. And a lot of even the developers who help develop this crypto world, they still are not used to it and don't understand how things work. So they say, why are you tweeting this? Why are you just talking? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you suing? Listen, court and lawsuits are a very inefficient way of doing business. Very inefficient. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to go that route if I have to, but that's not my primary, or that's not my favorite methodology of doing business. If I'm disrespected or ignored, well, you probably end up in court. But that's not the way I'd like to do it. So what I'm doing is I'm sitting back and I'm observing as I'm giving notice to dozens, if not hundreds of entities. And I'm watching the little battle play out. So this company, TRS Systems, has served notice and or cease and desist, but I think it's notice They've actually published it on their website, and they have legal papers drawn up, which are available directly on their website. They're not hiding, okay? And they serve MakerDAO and Compound DAO. Compound DAO was served via social media, okay? And there's federal, I believe they've been served with social media. I'm not sure, but I believe, okay? But there's plenty of precedent on the federal level that allows for that. Even on Twitter, there's specific case law that allows service by Twitter. So anybody who says, oh, a DAO can't be served, you better brush up on your case law, number one, okay?
Wow.
And your common
technology helping the case.
All right. Number two, and there's two ways to serve people. There's actual notice, where I send you a letter that says you are infringing on patent XYZ, claims 2, 3, and 4. And there's constructive notice, where you should have known, or where I've marked my patent and I've let you know, or you read about it in a news article.
Mm-hmm.
But wait a minute. How are you going to read about it in a news article if the news article is owned by a company where roughly 160 of their holdings are infringing on that patent? And because of that, they probably wouldn't announce this patent in the news article. This wouldn't happen anywhere like CoinDesk, of course. Never.
Oh, of course not. Everything circles back around,
Right. So that's not a big concern, because human nature is human nature, and word gets around. Okay. But once you read about it, once you know about it, you're now on constructive notice. So it's the same as if you were sent the notice directly anyway. Okay. Now, the DAO has been served. Okay. Let's assume the DAO has been served. These legal papers are drawn up. They're drawn up in a way to let the judge know and the court know that, this entity is not plain easy to get. And then if a DAO is truly decentralized, right, who comes to court to fight the battle? That's an actual question.
It should be nobody if it's decentralized.
So if that's the case, I don't know if you've ever had to go to court for anything, even a traffic ticket. But when the government comes to court and you don't come to court, what happens?
Contempt of court. You got another charge.
Wow. You're squealing on yourself. You're stitching on yourself. But okay. You lose.
I paid my tickets.
You lose by default. Summary judgment, basically. The other side didn't show up. They didn't defend themselves. So we win because there's nobody to fight. So now with a summary judgment, what does this entity do? Now that they've won against the DAO, but the DAO has no address and no identifiable people or members, except for the members who bragged about investing in the DAO. Who would that be? Andreessen Howard's A16Z, $60 billion venture capital firm, Coinbase Ventures, $60 billion exchange with a very large venture capital firm attached to it, Bain Capital, Unit Square Capital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now we have these big venture capital funds that are open to raw risk in a judgment. If that would have been my patent, I factor in, you're talking between somewhere around 170 times 400. So you're talking somewhere around between 100 and $300 million. Okay? Just roughly off the top of my head. Could be absolutely wrong, but roughly $300 million. Now, Martin Maley, big time hedge fund, you invested $1 million, okay? But you are just as liable for that $300 million as everybody else in that DAO. So suppose everybody ran and I can't catch them, but I caught you, okay? Because you're on YouTube. You're on YouTube. I find your address. You brag about investing in it. Now I come to you with a $300 million bill, okay? You're a big time investor. You have $1 million which you invested. So you put $1 million in, and then I extract $300 million out. That is the world's worst investment. Normally, how this would have worked is you'd have had a corporation, and because you're putting money into the corporation, either equity or debt or whatever, there's a lot of risk. And you risk losing 100% everything you put in there. But you risk losing 100% of everything that you put in there. Now you're at risk, period. And there is no limiter because there's no corporate risk liability limit. There's no liability limit because you have no legal wrapper because you're decentralized and you don't need traditional blah, 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 blah.
All right.
So
it's almost
I'm
a
all for
lose-lose situation.
Yeah, and it's really understand this is something that these professional investors I don't think would have ever done in any other industry. They go and invest in a semiconductor factory. Do you think they'd do it without having that semiconductor factory have a company or a legal organization? Of course not. They want to buy shares. A biopharmaceutical company. Of course, you need a company. Okay. With a biopharmaceutical company, would they check for patents and patent risk? Of course. Or how about a cell phone company or a chip manufacturer or go online? But for some reason, you go to crypto and traditional risk management, traditional due diligence out the window. So now, Mark Merley, big time hedge fund, has to explain to his shareholders, A, I lost all your money. But that's the good news. The bad news is I need 299 million more to pay this off, right? You understand?
We're losing collateral at that point.
Yeah. So that is the risk I have to DAO investors. Okay, significant risk. Now, Wyoming has realized that there's a particular risk and they've customized the limited liability company rules to befit a DAO and its decentralized nature. Now, it would make sense to wrap that into a LLC or something. But when you do that, you lose a full decentralized advantage because now you're centralized. You also don't have unlimited risk. Okay. Now, there are other ways to limit your risk as well. A little beyond, I'm not going to go into that here. But, I just want to give everybody an example. Compound DAO and the members of Compound DAO, you have some issues. Make a DAO as well. And any DAO where significant capital has been put into it, or significant assets happen to be in it, and you're operating a business, and it's a technology business. Many of the operations are infringing on existing patents because you did not believe in owning your IP. A lot of people say, well, this is open source. And I've had so many literally fights with people, and I've been calm the whole time, but they get really, really emotional. Number one, most of them don't understand what they're arguing about. Open source and patenting don't have anything to do with each other. Okay? You buy a house, right? If you really believe in this open source thing and don't believe in IP at the same time, that means when you buy a house, you're perfectly comfortable with not getting a deed to your house.
Anybody just can come in.
Right. So no deed, you just give them the money and you move into your house and you don't need a deed because I don't believe in intellectual property protection. Now, when someone comes to take your house or they move in or they burn it down or bulldoze it, you have no recourse. Why? Because you didn't believe in the ownership.
It's almost like the argument you see with some of these DeFi projects where people get rug pulled and now they're looking for the government to refund them. And it's like, the game you were playing, you can't kind of switch stints now.
And don't be looking to the government. The government's centralized, You have a fire, you call the fire department. The fire department was like, nah, we decentralized, dude.
You better hope for some rain.
I suggest you get some water and be out, right?
Right.
So decentralization is a good thing. It is, but you have to look at it in realistic terms, okay? And there are trade-offs. Just like at times, centralization is a good thing. You just have to look at it in realistic terms, and there are trade-offs, right? Do not get, don't become cultish. Don't lose your ability to think critically.
Do you think they can coexist in society together?
They've been doing it ever since. Look, there's no such thing as fully decentralized. Yeah, that's fully decentralized, that's fully centralized. Every single project in the crypto industry rests somewhere along that spectrum, but none of them are here and none of them there, okay? You get the aspects of decentralization are very powerful, just like aspects of centralization can be very powerful. You swing too far to one side of the spectrum and the boat flips over. Here's a perfect example where I throw simple fact. Anything that's fully decentralized, nobody can ever profit from its operation. Why is that?
Because how would you be able to I don't know, maybe disperse all that in a fair amount or a fair way to everybody?
It's not dual fair. And if you profit from it, that means you centralize capital for you to take it out. Okay. But if you centralize it, then it's not decentralized. If it's decentralized and there's 1 million people in it, then everybody gets the exact same amount.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if that's the case, then how are you going to pay for developers? Developers have to make more than others because you have to pay them, especially up front. The initial funders, etc. Anything is fully decentralized is not going to be profitable for operators or investors. Because why would I work to operate it when I'm guaranteed to get the same amount as everybody else by doing nothing?
Right.
Okay, so that's taking it to an extreme, extreme, like socialism is like extreme decentralization. But, I use these buzzwords and it starts to trigger the crypto crowd. So I don't want to get into that. But I'm trying to get you into thinking critically, okay, and not just following the mantra that you hear at the conference in Miami.
Right, because I've heard mixed reviews about that. I didn't get to go, but I think as long as everybody understands the foundations behind everything, and to your first point when we first started, go straight to your primary sources and read and do your research.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off, man.
No,
You go
all
straight
good,
to your
all
primary
good.
sources and you stay there. You don't leave,
So Reggie, I don't want to take too much time up for your day today. Do we want to end this off on any last words?
Actually, is there ability to take questions or call-ins or is there a live chat?
That's a great question. I'm not even looking at the live chat. Let me see. Taking a playbook out of King and Zay, impromptu.
Everything I do is impromptu. So.
Hey, it's the best way. Just dive in head first, right?
Okay, I see there's definitely a big live chat. There's a bunch of people chatting. So if anybody wants to call in, I'll let you handle that. I like to speak. I like to have an interactive speech.
Let's see.
And if nobody wants to talk, then we can end it.
Do they have the link in the chat?
I have absolutely no idea. I didn't set this up. I think King did. Yep.
Yes, I'm not even able to. Yeah, I'm not even able to see it on my side.
Okay, I see the chat. We have Creo, the traveler, Reggie, is watching David Morgan interview Michael McCubbin, who claims to be founder of social networking and his ideas were stolen by British Pilgrim Society. If true, why do you believe you will do better? Well, number one, I'm not him. And number two, I patented. That's what the patent system is for, to protect the owners of ideas. Okay? So people have used my ideas and people have stolen my ideas. But the patent gives you the right to sue to protect your ideas. And so I can sue. I don't want to sue, but I can. Fighting patent infringement with a patent that's valid is a total waste of money. Absolute waste of money.
And like you say, if it's 70% of DeFi projects that infringe upon that sounds like a lot of court cases and a lot of money.
Yeah, it's not even DeFi projects because it's the mechanics of conditional value transfer is what is patented. So NFTs, if NFTs are transferred, chances are they infringe on a patent. Okay, people forget NFTs is simply crypto. And people also forget or probably don't realize most crypto are NFTs anyway, particularly in the US where you have strong anti-money laws, you have centralized gatekeepers, et cetera. I was explaining to everybody, Bitcoin is probably the first NFT in crypto. And then people are like, oh, no, Bitcoin is fungible. Explain that to the dudes who were alleged to have, or the dude and his girlfriend who were from New York, who were alleged to have stolen the BTC from Bitfinex hack and were allegedly caught trying to launder it. That Bitcoin was frozen. Okay. If that Bitcoin is tagged as dirty and it's frozen or just tagged as dirty, and then you try and resell it, Is that dirty Bitcoin worth the exact same as any other Bitcoin? If the answer is no, then it's not fungible. In order for something to be fungible, it has to be perfectly replaceable and of the exact same value and unidentifiable. Okay? $20 bills, $100 bills, technically are not fungible. My dog just ripped up a $20 bill and I was ready to get rid of him for that. And the $20, the $20 bill has a serial number on it. Okay. Now, most people ignore that serial number, so that makes it fungible in practice until the government wants it not to be. Then they tag it, radiation, special stamps, etc., and it's not fungible. So this has been a long conversation. We're coming up on 45 minutes. I'm going to try and do this regularly. Okay? And we're going to try and mix the crowd. So I have roughly 21,000 YouTube followers. I think I have about maybe 44,000 Twitter followers. Then you mix LinkedIn and everything. So altogether, I think I have about maybe 70,000 people we could bring in to this conversation, in addition to the gentleman in crypto and their 20,000. So together, you're talking 60 to 80,000 people we get into a discussion, and this would be a real hardcore discussion. Let's call this the stuff CoinDesk can't say. No, call this the stuff CoinDesk is afraid to say. Yes, I'm challenging CoinDesk. Now, you know, if something negative happens, they're going to run it. And that could be all over their front page, but they're not going to cover this. Everybody should tag CoinDesk on Twitter and say, why are you covering patents about heartbeat mining, okay, and NFT monkeys, but you're not covering a patent that covers 70% of the crypto industry? Interesting, right? Challenge them. See what their reply is. Listen to those crickets. Okay, so I'm ready to end whenever you are. I'm ready to end whenever you are. If you want to take another question, otherwise, question or two. I'm in my zone now, so it's up to you.
Well, yeah, we can get it with one more question. So let's see, somebody asked, what is, Reggie, what's your opinion on Monero and Pirate Chain?
What's the second one?
Pirate Chain.
Pirate Chain. I don't know Pirate Chain that well. Monero, talk about a strong use case.
Security.
Yeah, the problem with Monero is that it has a strong use case. So I actually was down at the conference. I went to the Monero conference. It was smaller and less pretentious, and not trying to knock the big one, right? But I think if I were to have my way, I would take Monero and I would incorporate it into a decentralized platform that interfaces with a traditional network, traditional finance. You're not going to get away with a totally private, encrypted chain that has absolutely no KYC. You're just painting a target on your back, and the government has a hell of a sniper, and they're going to take you.
Alphabet boys waiting.
Yeah. So, but what you can do is use it for privacy, right? Trying to get privacy from the government is a fool's errand. You're not going to get it. And people who think they have it now, wake up. My stuff is encrypted. Do you really think with the US's $23 trillion a year GDP, do you really think they haven't cracked every single encryption key that's in existence in the US? You know, as a matter of fact, I'd say half of those encryption keys came from the NSA. Okay, they're honeypots. But instead of trying to hide from the government, why don't you just hide from people, everybody else who don't need to see your business? It minimizes lawsuits and theft and everything else, and voluntarily give your ID to the government, because it's very difficult to defeat the government, especially this one. So instead of trying to fight a losing battle or fight a battle you may win, and you have to stand still for the next 40 years trying to win it, right? Follow the law, KYC, AML, right? Lobby to allow full encryption and full privacy right under the government regulatory layer. So everybody else doesn't get to see it, except for the government. That's called business. That's how an adult would handle it, okay? Just like with patent infringement. You know, let's suppose you infringe on my patent, you owe me 1.5% of revenues because it's a solid infringement, and that's, you know, basically what's worked out to be. There are entities who are more than willing to pay 2.25% of revenues to fight the patent. Dude, Are you in a sole profit business? Like, are you worried about having a patent, that you have to pay, or are you worried about maximizing your return for your shareholders or stakeholders if you're a non-public, if you're not a private company or a public company? Okay, so that's it for me. I'll take another question if you want. Otherwise, next Wednesday, hopefully.
Yeah, looks like chat slowed down some, so I think we're good. We'll make sure to have another 10 minutes carved out next time. And yeah, that's all for me. Appreciate you today, Reggie, and look forward to joining you again next week.
Sounds good.
Have a good one. Cheers.